the intelligence community insiders who are being whistleblowers and pundits now are actually carrying out what they're calling controlled disclosure, but it's not disclosure. It's the opposite. It's Project Blue Book all over again. It's actually an updating, a modernization of the cover up. The UFO rabbit hole. The final episode. I don't listen to it a lot. I listen to it in batches. I mean, I think for the most part, this is like Corbell Camp adjacent until today, I guess. So, ardent defender of Lou Elizondo for years and years and years. And I think how I kind of first got into watching the UFO rabbit hole, or paying attention to it anyways, was around probably the lead up to the Soul Conference. And so what I got familiar with them or her, is the defense of the people, Elizondo, and all the other people involved at the Soul Conference. And so I think that I'm blocked by the UFO rabbit hole on Twitter, on X, and it's because I had said stuff like Elizondo speaks in 5th grade motivational posters and parables. It's not from saying anything like, hey, fuck you, fuckface. So, a long Twitter post, long X post, and a 46-minute video explaining that the UFO Rabbit Hole podcast is over. It's going to rebrand itself as Cosmosis and stop focusing on disclosure. And they no longer believe that Elizondo, folks like Elizondo, are telling the truth, in that they are working towards forcing the government, the conspiracy, to do disclosure. And that when she came to that realization was basically at the Soul Conference, was going through the process leading up to the Soul Conference, the actual Soul Conference, and then everything afterwards, and listening to Carl Nell's presentation at the Soul Conference, where basically he explains that himself and the other intelligence community insiders who have come out and who have been speaking out and blowing whistles, quote unquote, are pursuing controlled disclosure on behalf of the intelligence community. Which the argument that he's making is, he's saying that he and all of his cohorts and the Soul Conference are credible because they are responsible intelligence community insiders. And so all the things that they're doing are not necessarily directly coordinated, but they are coordinated in thought and in skill and in purpose, as these are all people who have been authorized, released, sent out by the government, by the conspiracy, to talk about it. And almost all these people are talking about it, and they're saying, hey, this is what I'm allowed to talk about. And I won't talk about the stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about. And I'm okay with that. And so she's saying that Carl Nell convinced her that the intelligence community insiders who are being whistleblowers and pundits now are actually carrying out what they're calling controlled disclosure, but it's not disclosure. It's the opposite. It's Project Blue Book all over again. It's actually an updating, a modernization of the cover-up. And so she doesn't necessarily say all of that, but she says most of that. Kind of seems to me that she's giving it to everyone but Carl Nell for the most part, who she's still saying is, and he's basically credible and truthful and saying what they're doing. And it does, like when I was watching this whole conference and paying attention to all that stuff, it seemed like they were all kind of saying that at this whole conference. And me and a whole bunch of other people on X and YouTube and everywhere who've been, blocked by the UFO rabbit hole for saying the exact same stuff that the UFO rabbit hole says in this final episode and says is the reason that they're ending their podcast and rebranding it into a more woo direction versus disclosure, and going to be calling itself Cosmosis, which is what they've already been calling themselves, as they did like a TV series, or maybe it was Apple TV, documentary on UFOs and aliens. So this is kind of like a fancy rebrand. In the X post, it says, all my enemies are going to take this and chop it up and leverage it as all the bad things I've done. And I don't take any of it back. So we're on episode 2 of Cosmosis. Red Panda Koala. Kind of one of the main people in the UFO sphere, Ufology, on UFO Twitter, battling it out daily with the UFO rabbit hole over Lou Elizondo. And he's saying the same thing, like, look, it's all the same stuff that I've been saying, and that Kelly Chase has blocked us over and accused us of doing all sorts of mean things because we don't agree with her on Lou Elizondo and others. Red Panda Koala comes out and says, haha! He says this is her completely changing to the other side. I'm not sure it is. I think it's really just mostly saying, I think Elizondo's no good. Still kind of believe all the same stuff I was saying. It's just Lou and his pals are doing the thing that Ufology has been accusing them of doing. Blue Book, Part 2, or Part 3, or Part 12. It's kind of the same playbook as always with the conspiracy. Elections, reform, or perish. What a name for a ufologist. Hey, Red Panda Koala, Chupacabra, what do you think when she says you guys are fucking terrible and are gonna chop this up and reinforce their own myopic narratives? I ended up on here and in the Average Chris's video at some point saying this. I mean, if you give her the benefit of the doubt, watch her video, read her paragraph post, go look at anything Tupa or Red Panda are saying, she seems wrong. So, I mean, like I said, it's a rebrand. It doesn't mean a lot when you really pay attention to what she's saying, except for, yeah, she's definitely going from being like the Lou Elizondo person to not anymore.